Netanyahu's new private security team has just shocked the entire world. He's dismantling the very system built to keep him alive and replacing it with something nobody has ever seen before. The threats closing in on him right now are unlike anything facing any other leader on the planet. But to truly understand just how extraordinary Netanyahu's security has become, we first need to put it in context. So let's look at the 5 most heavily guarded world leaders on the planet. Because by the time we get to number 1, you'll realize Netanyahu isn't just on this list. He's in a category of his own. Number 5. Xi Jinping. Most world leaders have a security team. Xi Jinping has a security empire. Xi Jinping is the most powerful man in China, the head of the world's most populous nation, the commander of the world's largest military, and the undisputed ruler of a one-party state that answers to no one. But power like that comes with a price. And Xi Jinping pays that price every single day. Behind the scenes, an organization called the Central Guard Bureau controls every aspect of Xi's personal safety. Its bodyguards are typically trained by the People's Liberation Army, and the Bureau is so deeply embedded in Xi's world that protectees are kept under constant surveillance, not just by enemies, but by their own security detail. These are not ordinary guards. These are soldiers whose entire military career is built around one mission: keeping one man alive. But here's where it gets extraordinary. When Xi Jinping travels, even within his own country, entire cities are transformed into security operations. Roads are blocked, businesses are shut down for weeks in advance, and undercover operatives flood the streets, disguised as students, elderly pedestrians, and even square-dancing grandmothers, all carrying identical water bottles and whispering into hidden earpieces. You wouldn't know they were there. That's exactly the point. And the motorcade? Up to 50 police vehicles move in convoy every time Xi steps out, led by motorcycles, explosive ordnance disposal units, and a specialized vehicle capable of shutting down every phone signal and wireless network in the surrounding area to prevent anyone from remotely detonating a device. Ballistic briefcases, machine guns, a fully armored limousine, all for one man. Since coming to power in 2012, Xi has purged political rivals, restructured the entire military and internal security apparatus, and built what many describe as an Orwellian surveillance state. All in the name of security. The paranoia isn't irrational. China's own Ministry of State Security declared that political security is the most essential need and foundation for a country's survival. And Xi has taken that declaration personally. He has even reshuffled the leadership of his own protective bureau, reportedly because he suspected threats were coming not from outside China, but from within his own inner circle. When a man with 5,000 personal guards starts wondering if those guards can be trusted, you begin to understand what it truly means to live inside a gilded cage. Xi Jinping is number 5 on this list. And if he's number 5, what you're about to hear next will genuinely shock you. Number 4. Kim Jong-un. Xi Jinping has 5,000 guards. Kim Jong-un has an army, not a security team, not a detail, a literal army, dedicated entirely to keeping one man breathing. Kim Jong-un rules North Korea through an iron grip that the outside world barely understands. He controls every newspaper, every broadcast, every meal, every thought his citizens are permitted to have. He has had family members executed. He has purged generals, officials, and advisors at will. By every measure, he is one of the most feared men alive. But here is what they don't tell you. Kim Jong-un is terrified. According to South Korean intelligence, Kim is consumed by fears of a clandestine Western decapitation operation, a covert mission designed to eliminate him silently, without warning, before he even knows it's coming. And that fear has built one of the most extraordinary personal protection systems in human history. It's called the Supreme Guard Command, and it is unlike anything else on Earth. The Guard Command numbers close to 100,000 personnel, dispersed across the country in battalions, regiments, and brigades, with one singular mission: keep Kim Jong-un alive. To put that in perspective, the entire United States Secret Service has roughly 7,000 employees. Kim Jong-un's protection force is 14 times that size. Every single one of them exists for one purpose, but the numbers are only the beginning. To become one of Kim's elite close protection guards, potential recruits are subjected to rigorous background checks. Family members going back 2 generations are vetted for loyalty. Recruits are chosen for fitness, height, eyesight, marksmanship, martial arts ability, and even their physical appearance. Once selected, their old identities are effectively erased. They are given an ID number while all other personal records are destroyed. Contact with family is forbidden for at least 12 to 13 years. These men don't just protect Kim, they become him. Their entire existence is defined by his survival. And when Kim moves, the whole country feels it. Decoy motorcades fan out across multiple routes. Venues are changed at the last minute. 7 layers of security cordons are established around every location he visits. Hidden deep beneath Pyongyang and within the mountains of North Korea are underground facilities and alternate command sites, built specifically to guarantee his survival during a crisis. There are even tunnels believed to connect his palaces to one another, giving him the ability to disappear underground entirely. What he didn't know was that even this wasn't enough to silence the fear. South Korea's National Intelligence Service assessed that Kim Jong-un has dramatically ramped up security measures at public appearances, showing clear signs that he believes an assassination attempt is not just possible, but imminent. A man with 100,000 soldiers guarding him still doesn't feel safe. That tells you everything. Kim Jong-un is number 4 on this list. But the next man on our countdown doesn't rule from the shadows. He stands in front of cameras, shakes hands, holds rallies, and has survived multiple attempts on his life in the past year alone. Number 3, Donald Trump, 2 assassination attempts, 1 year, 1 man. No sitting president in modern American history has faced the volume and severity of threats that Donald Trump has. And the security apparatus built around him reflects exactly that reality. Let's start with July 13, 2024. Trump was mid-speech at an open-air rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, when a 20-year-old named Thomas Crooks opened fire from a nearby rooftop with an AR-15 style rifle, firing 8 rounds. Trump was struck in the upper right ear. 1 audience member was killed. 2 others were critically injured. The images that followed, Trump raising his fist, blood streaking down his face, mouthing the words, "Fight, fight, fight," went viral around the world within seconds. He had come within inches of death. But Trump wasn't done being targeted. Just 2 months later, on September 15th, while golfing at his club in West Palm Beach, Florida, a Secret Service agent conducting a sweep of the course ahead of Trump spotted a rifle barrel pointing through the fence line from the tree line. The gunman had been hiding there for nearly 12 hours, waiting. 12 hours, crouched in bushes, armed, waiting for 1 man to walk into his sight line. The agent fired. The gunman fled. Trump had survived again. 2 assassination attempts in 60 days. The Secret Service called it the most significant security failure since Reagan was shot in 1981, and this was just the beginning of the nightmare of protecting Donald Trump. Because the threats don't just come from lone gunmen. Iran began plotting against Trump's life following the assassination of Qasem Soleimani in 2020, and the Biden administration warned Iran that any attempt on Trump's life would be considered an act of war. Foreign intelligence agencies, domestic extremists, radicalized individuals from across the political spectrum. The threat environment around Trump is, by any measure, extraordinary. So what does it take to keep him alive? Meet the beast. The presidential limousine weighs around 20,000 pounds, is bulletproof, blast-resistant, and completely sealed to withstand biochemical attacks. It can fire tear gas, deploy a smokescreen, and electrify its own door handles to repel attackers. There is a refrigerator on board, stocked with Trump's blood type in case he is injured mid-journey. The beast doesn't travel alone either. It sits at the center of a full motorcade, flanked by counter-assault SUVs, a hazardous materials unit, a communications vehicle, and a jamming vehicle that can neutralize any remote explosive device within range. There are always at least 2 identical decoy beasts in every motorcade, so no one outside the detail ever knows which one he's actually in. Above him, airspace is locked down. Around him, counter-sniper teams scan every rooftop, every tree line, every elevated position within range. And when he flies, it's Air Force One, one of the most defended aircraft on the planet. After the failures of July 13th, the Secret Service overhauled its entire operation, identifying breakdowns in communication, gaps in command and control, and a lack of diligence by its own personnel that nearly cost a president his life. The agency has since rebuilt its protective model from the ground up. New aviation divisions, new surveillance protocols, new rules, because 1 bullet grazed his ear. The next one might not miss. Donald Trump is number 3, but the man at number 2 doesn't just face assassins. He faces an entire world that wants him gone, and he's been living with that reality for years. Number 2, Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump survived 2 assassination attempts. Vladimir Putin has lost count of his. Since taking power in 2000, Putin has accumulated more enemies than perhaps any other leader alive. Oligarchs he's crossed, intelligence officers he's betrayed, foreign governments he's threatened, military commanders he's humiliated, and since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, an entirely new category of enemy, the Western world. Every single one of them wants him gone, and Putin knows it, so he built something extraordinary, something that doesn't just protect a man, it erases him. The Federal Protective Service, known as the FSO, is the agency responsible for Putin's safety. It commands an estimated 50,000 uniformed personnel, plus thousands more in plain clothes. It controls Russia's nuclear briefcase, and by law, Putin is not even permitted to decline its protection. This isn't a security detail. This is a shadow government built around one man's survival, but the FSO is just the outer layer. Deep within it sits the Presidential Security Service, the SBP, an elite unit so secretive that even its own operations are classified at the highest level of the Russian state. Guards rotate out at age 35 to maintain peak physical readiness. Every single one must speak at least one foreign language. Their psychological profiles are evaluated and re-evaluated continuously. These men are not just bodyguards, they are weapons designed to think. And when Putin moves, the entire operation goes dark. Locations are scouted in secret, days in advance of any public announcement. Advance teams arrive weeks early to inspect venues, replacing furniture, examining plumbing, sanitizing entire environments. Putin never uses a mobile phone. He travels by special armored train when the threat level demands it. When he flies, it's aboard what intelligence analysts call the Flying Kremlin, a custom aircraft with its own communications, security systems, and onboard staff sworn to secrecy. Then there's the detail that stops people cold when they first hear it. Every meal Putin eats, at home, abroad, at summits, is first tested by a dedicated food taster. Chefs are required to wear gloves, change uniforms multiple times per day, and have their hands checked for cuts before touching anything he might consume. And when Putin travels internationally, a specially sealed container follows him everywhere, collecting his biological waste, his DNA, every trace of his physical presence, to prevent foreign intelligence agencies from analyzing his health data. The man is so protected that even his own body isn't allowed to leave a trail. But this was just the beginning of his nightmare. Because the war in Ukraine didn't just cost Russia men and money, it turned the Kremlin itself into a target. Security services were rattled by a series of attacks on high-ranking politicians across Europe and Asia, prompting an unprecedented escalation in Putin's personal protection. At the 2024 Victory Day parade on Red Square, one of Russia's most symbolic events, Putin was secretly fitted with a bulletproof vest beneath his coat, surrounded by 24 guards carrying body armor disguised as briefcases. The most powerful man in Russia, standing in his own capital city, wearing a hidden vest, because even there, he didn't feel safe. His primary residence at Novo-Ogaryovo, nestled 20 kilometers west of Moscow in dense woodland, is a self-contained fortress. Satellite imagery reveals underground bunkers, helipads, high walls, and Pantsir I missile systems positioned to intercept drones and missiles. And then there are the decoys. The Kremlin has replicated Putin's office, down to the flag, the desk, and the video screens, at multiple locations across Russia, so that no one outside his innermost circle ever knows where he actually is at any given moment. For 15 years, rumors have circulated that the FSO deploys a presidential body double for Putin's highest-risk appearances. The Kremlin denies it, but when a man has bunkers, decoy offices, a food taster, a waste collection protocol, 50,000 guards, and missile defense systems around his home, you stop asking whether the paranoia is justified. It clearly is. Vladimir Putin is number 2 on this list, but the man at number 1 doesn't have the luxury of hiding in bunkers or disappearing into the Russian wilderness. He operates in one of the most volatile, most surveilled, most dangerous corners of the world. And right now, today, he may be the single most targeted human being on the planet. Number 1. Benjamin Netanyahu. Every man on this list faces threats. Benjamin Netanyahu has declared war on the very people protecting him and replaced them with his own. Let's start with what just happened, because this is the story that shocked the world. In March 2025, Netanyahu did something that had never been done in the entire history of the State of Israel. His cabinet voted unanimously to fire Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar, the first time in Israeli history that a government had ever dismissed the head of its own domestic security agency. The man responsible for Netanyahu's personal protection, gone, fired, by Netanyahu himself. The world didn't just watch in disbelief, it watched in alarm. Because here is what made this move so extraordinary. The Shin Bet had recently opened an investigation into 3 of Netanyahu's own advisors, allegedly for receiving payments from Qatar while working inside the Prime Minister's office. And the man Netanyahu just fired was the man running that investigation. Barr didn't go quietly either. In a letter to the cabinet, he warned that Netanyahu was taking steps that weaken the country, both internally and against its enemies, and blasted the government's reasoning as nothing more than a cover for fundamentally invalid motives designed to disrupt the Shin Bet's ability to fulfill its role. In other words, the outgoing head of Israeli intelligence publicly accused his own prime minister of dismantling national security for personal gain. But Netanyahu wasn't done. He had already removed Barr and the head of Mossad, David Barnea, from the hostage negotiating team, replacing them with Ron Dermer, a close Netanyahu confidant. The two most powerful intelligence chiefs in Israel, sidelined, replaced by a loyalist. Netanyahu's aides openly admitted he was inspired by Donald Trump's purging of the so-called deep state, appointing personal loyalists to every key position of power. Israel's most sensitive security positions, now in the hands of men who answer to one person. Critics called it a takeover, his enemies called it a vulnerability, and the rest of the world called it the most dangerous political move a wartime leader has ever made, because Netanyahu isn't doing this from a position of safety, he is doing this while being hunted. In October 2024, a Hezbollah drone struck his private home in Caesarea. He wasn't there, but the message was unmistakable. They knew where he lived, and they were willing to strike it. Iran has made no secret of its desire to see him dead, and then came the move that changed everything about how he could operate on the world stage. The International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, the first ever issued against the leader of a Western-backed democratic nation. Overnight, 124 countries became legally obligated to detain him on arrival. Allies, trading partners, countries Israel had counted on for decades, all of them now potential threats. So what does the security operation around him actually look like? Unit 730, the Shin Bet's elite VIP protection unit, remains his last line of defense. Every member is a combat veteran, hand-selected from Israel's most distinguished military units, and their protocols have been pushed beyond anything seen before. Advanced body scanners at every public event, thermal surveillance, signal jamming vehicles, a residential no-fly zone, a cyber division working around the clock to protect his digital footprint from Iranian intelligence, and agents now appearing in public wearing black face masks, not for health reasons, but to conceal their identities from foreign authorities who could legally arrest them simply for doing their jobs. This is what it looks like when a sitting prime minister is simultaneously fighting a war, facing criminal prosecution, being hunted by foreign governments, and dismantling the very intelligence apparatus built to keep him alive, all at the same time. What he didn't know was that in trying to control his own security, he may have made himself more vulnerable than ever before. Civil society organizations warned that Barr's departure would pave the way for Netanyahu to appoint an ally to the most sensitive post in Israel, and that doing so would fundamentally compromise the independence of the agency responsible for keeping him alive. Think about that. The man is surrounded by enemies on every border, hunted by an international court, targeted by Iran, and his response is to fire the people protecting him and replace them with loyalists. 5 world leaders, 5 fortresses, but only one of them just set fire to his own defenses, in the middle of the most dangerous moment of his life. Benjamin Netanyahu isn't just the most heavily guarded leader on this list. He is the most hunted, the most exposed, and right now, the most dangerous man to protect on the entire planet.